Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my session on supercharging your PI planning sessions with Miro. My name is Gabriel Chaveri, and I'm a project leader, excuse me, with Headstorm, project leader and software PM with Headstorm near in Dallas, Texas. Headstorm is a boutique software consulting firm. I have been in the industry. I've been a professional for 20 plus years. My career actually started as a civil engineer. And then I have worn many hats in technical sales, technical marketing. I was a product marketing manager at some point. And then back in 2019, I was a global software PM, and now I'm a consultant. So I have a variety of roles that I've lived in my life. Today's session is about how to supercharge your PI planning sessions using Miro. And my goal at the end of this presentation is that if you're new to Miro, if you're new to SAFe, if you've never done a PI planning event, or if you're starting to do it, that in the next 20 to 25 minutes, you become a pro with the tips that I'm going to give you. And one caveat to my presentations, if you're not doing SAFe, if you're not doing PI planning events, but you are part of a product team, you are doing Agile, you do Scrum, stick around, because what I'm going to talk about is going to be helpful for you, even if you're not doing PI planning events from Miro. Brief agenda. So I'll start off with my journey to Miro, how I started using the tool. Then I'll give you some 7 ways that you can supercharge your PI planning events with Miro and impress your colleagues while you're at it. And then we'll get onto our Q&A. So with that, let's get started. My Miro journey began in 2019. I had just been promoted. I was working for Hilti Corporation and Hilti Group, and I had just been promoted to a global software PM role, and I was super excited for 2 main reasons. One, it was a global role, and I was going to have to do some traveling, interviewing customers and such, a lot of them in Europe, so I like that. And number 2, because it was a trailblazing role. It was something that I've never done before that really excited me. It really, this new role had a trifecta of coolness, as I like to call it. Me and my team, we were working on a construction technology SaaS application. We were working on an MVP all the way from concept to launch. And then I was going to be part of the globally distributed team. We were launching this app in Germany and North America first, but my team was all over the place. And it was cool to work with so many nationalities and things while I was doing the work from the US. And the really cool thing about it is that we as a team, we're going to get together every 4 months in Liechtenstein in Europe for their PI planning events. If you're not familiar with Liechtenstein, it's a really tiny principality located between Austria and Switzerland, and it's really beautiful. Now, I'll be using the term PI planning event or PIPE throughout my presentation. So let's define, if you're not familiar with SAFe or PI planning, what this is. A PI planning event or program increment planning event is really a meeting. It's typically a 3-day meeting where all Agile teams, typically in large enterprises, because this is used mostly for larger organizations, they get together to do this planning event, and the team commits to a set of features, user stories, and work items that will be delivered over a specific time or program increment, which can last between 8 to 12 weeks. This PIPE event is a key ceremony of SAFe, Scale Agile Framework for Enterprises, which is just a framework. If you're not familiar with SAFe, it's a framework for scaling Agile and Lean principles to large enterprises or organizations. Now, during this big 3-day meeting, the teams get together to work on their own unique boards. Then they share their plan with the other teams with the program board review. They identify dependencies and objectives for what they commit to do work for the next iteration, for the next 12 weeks. So SAFe is like, as someone has said before, it's like Agile on steroids. So that's a quick definition of SAFe and PI planning. So here's a picture of my first SAFe event. First time ever, this was around 2019. A picture on the left is our team sprint board. So back in the day, stickies actually meant things that you would put on the walls. They were real stickies. And you have the board here. Each one of these boards, this whiteboard, is a sprint. You can see the sprint name, the dates, what is the capacity, and each sticky would represent either a feature or a story or a bug based on the color. So this was us on the left planning. This was our board. And then when all the teams were finished planning, then you would go to the program board review, as you see here on the right, where each row represents a different team. And each team, one member of the team would go and represent or display, hey, what are we planning to commit for this, for the next few iterations? What are our objectives? And this will lead to discussion back and forth, identify dependencies and risks. Sometimes it will lead to replan But this was the event. This was the program board review. And it was a lot of fun. It was a big meeting. I remember my first one, we had about 60 to 80 people, all in a big room, lots of energy, everyone super excited. And this was going to be my world for the next few years in my global PM role until COVID hit. And then, as you all know, for me personally, the glamour of my global role was going to be conducted out of my home office here in Texas. But more importantly, we as a team, we needed to figure out, well, how are we going to do this remotely? How are we going to do our PA planning events? And that's when I first became aware of Miro. We selected the tool as a company and we started to use it for PA planning events. And as I'm sure for me, as it is for some of you in the call, the first time we used Miro, we just used it as a whiteboard tool. Really, we needed a replacement for actual stickies to digital stickies. And that's what Miro provided. So we put in, here's a picture of a board. This would be a team board. We would get together globally. Everybody would put their stories in Miro, their features. Everybody would collaborate. We would join the Teams call, etc. And we would plan. And I'll tell you as a side note, some of the glamour of the globally distributed team, yay, people working with people from all over the world, which was cool and it still is cool. Having this meeting at a time when that works for everyone around the globe was a little bit challenging, as we have meetings at 5 or 6 in the morning, 3-day meeting that started at 5 or 6 in the morning. So we try to make it fun, we would put funny pictures and stuff. But really, this was our use of Miro for this time. Now, eventually, I left Hilti and I joined the Great Resignation in 2019. And this is when I joined Headstone with my current employer, this is when I really became aware of the possibilities and features available to Miro users that go beyond just stickies. At the beginning, when I first joined Headstone, because it's a consultancy, I was waiting to get assigned to my first client project. So during that time, I just upskilled. I listened to webinars, I got some certifications, and I started participating in Miro webinars. And my eyes opened up to, oh my goodness, all of these things that Miro can do that I didn't know about. Eventually, I was assigned to my first client, and luckily, my first client was undergoing their own SAFe transformation. It was a large European global company that I cannot name. They had just started adopting SAFe. They were going through their first PA planning events. So I was able to leverage what I learned as a PM with Hilti, with my newly found knowledge at Headstone, and of course, working with a great team, the client and our group of people in my company, to really have an impact on this client. And especially how we ran these PI planning events in Miro. We had such a strong impact that other teams within the client started to come to our sessions to learn, hey, how are these guys doing these PI planning events? Because it seems like they're so well prepared. So today, what I want to do in the next 10 minutes or so we can get to Q&A, is show you 7 ways that you can use Miro to supercharge your PI planning events. And again, if you don't use Pipe, if you don't do SAFe, if you do Agile or Scrum, you can use a lot of this as well. So let's get started. So I like to start with the end in mind. Let's assume we are part of Team A, everyone in the call. Hi, mom, probably my mom and someone else. Everyone on the call, we are part of Team A. And our goal is to first plan our board here on the left, and then move our features down to the program board so that we can review our features with the rest of the teams. Now, as we get started with our Team A, we need to find out, hey, what is our capacity for each of these iteration or sprint? And SAFe, iterations, and sprints are synonyms. So if you use iteration or sprint, it means the same thing. We need to figure out what is our load and when our features are going to be complete. So this is at the end of our session, we're going to fill this out, hopefully. Okay, so number 1 is you want to bring in your stories in Miro. Wait a minute, why bring it in Miro? We have all this stuff in Jira. Well, Miro is a visualization tool. You are going to be working for these PI planning events, not really in Jira. You want to bring all your work to Miro. And there's 3 ways to do this. Number 1 is the traditional method. Use the stickies. Prioritize, bring in all your work that you want to accomplish for your PI planning event. Prioritizes left to right, number 1, number 2, number 3 priorities, etc. And use color code for features, stories, and bugs, etc. So that the team can visualize, because planning is not just about your team, it's about the stakeholders that are coming to your meeting that they're going to want transparency. So method 1 is use the stickies. That's the proven method. There's an even better method than just writing in your stickies, and that is exporting your user stories from Jira directly into Miro. And this is very simple. You would export your user stories into a CSV or Excel file. You would copy the columns or the cells that you want to bring in. You go into Miro, you right click and you do paste the sticky notes, and magically each cell is converted into a sticky, so you don't have to write anything down. So this is a really nice method. Now, the best method to do this is actually method number 3, Jira cards, or the bomb method. This is the best. This is the only way that I do stories nowadays. If you're not familiar with Jira cards are just small editable widgets that are synced with Jira. It's an app that you bring in Miro. You tie it to your Jira project. You select the stories that you want to bring in, and now it's a smart widget. So you can, as you can see here, you can click on the widget, a window will open up and gives you the information about your user story. Description, what is the story, who's the assigned person, the different priorities. You can actually select what you want to put in here. And the beauty of Jira cards is that if you make any changes to the story in Miro, it will sync with Jira, and vice versa. If you make any changes in Jira, the changes on the story will sync in Miro. So this is a great tool if you're not using it. Now, if you want to start using this, here's a quick on how to bring it in. You would go to Jira cards on your app, on your applications, search for Jira or Azure cards. This is coming in November, I believe. This is going to be a new release. I saw it earlier today. You then select the issues, whether it's a story, features, epics that you want to bring. Then you select which play you want to view in the card. Obviously, you have a lot of options. So here's what you can view. Here's the story points, who it is assigned to, the name, etc. And then it brings everything that you selected here, it puts it in the board. This is a great method to bring your user stories. Now that we brought our user stories, now we have to figure out our team capacity. What is going to be our capacity for each iteration? SAFe recommends a variety of methods. I know different teams have different ways that they estimate the velocity. The simplest thing is in SAFe, you have 2-week sprints or 10 days. You take out 2 days, so you start really with 8, because 1 day is demos and planning, the other one is QA. You deduct the time people are going to be off, and that's your capacity. And then you take 80% of that because you want to be conservative, and that's your planning. That's your capacity, 41, for your iteration, first iteration, and then you do the same thing for each iteration, and that's how you do capacity planning. So now we're ready to start putting things in the board. Yay! So now each one of this is our team board. We have our 4 iterations in this PI planning. We know that our capacity is going to be 41 for 1.1, 42 for 1.2, and so on and so forth. So we're ready to start filling in our board. And now it's time to estimate the level of effort. It's story pointing time. This is when you want to figure out for each user story that you want to work on, how is it going to fit? Is it going to fit in the different iterations so that you can know when your features are going to be done? There's 2 ways to do this. You can add story points to the stickies directly. You can do this in Jira if you want as well, or you can do it in Miro. And if you haven't used this tool, I highly recommend you give it a try. It's the estimation feature. You go on the top bar here, you click on estimation, then you pick your scale, whether you want to do the Fibonacci series or t-shirt sizing. You then select the area that you want to estimate. You can do stickies, you can do Jira cards as well. And then you start the estimating, and everybody that is joined this estimation, then people start voting. Your developers start voting. For each story, everybody votes, and then you review each one. So in this one, we have a team member they think it's a 3, another team member thinks it's a 5. You discuss, and then you realize, okay, well, let's align, let's call this a 5. When you're done with your voting, Miro will then put in the little estimate right there, put a label if you use the stickies, or if you use the Jira cards, you will see that you would have this information here. Now, why do you want to put this information in the stories? I'm going to show you in a second why it's important that you visually see how many story points are required on each one of these. So let me show you why. We are now ready to bring this information into the iteration. So we know that our capacity in this example, we have 12. And regardless of the method that you're using, again, whether it's stickies or Jira cards, now you can see, hey, my priorities. So let me do this example with stickies. I know I have a capacity of 12, so I'm going to bring this story is 8, this story is 2, this story is 2, so 8 plus 2 plus 2, 12. Okay, this is complete. Now I'm going to move this story over here, and boom, now I know that feature 1 is going to be completed by iteration 1.2, So I'm gonna wanna move this eventually to the program board, this feature 1 right here. Same thing, you can, again, with stickies or with Jira cards, is the same thing, but this is why you want to show the story points here. So it's just easy math that you're doing here. And that's it. That's how you plan program board. I'm really condensing the 3 days of PA planning into really 10 minutes. So that's step number 1. Now, there is a challenge with this method that I want to discuss. And this is a challenge that I experienced. Sometimes if you have a very large team and you have a lot of stories, or as you have more than one PI planning, sometimes you're already going to have some stories assigned to some sprints in Jira, as you see here on the right. But during PI planning, as you have the program board review and as you have discussion, you may start moving this story from here to here. And this one, actually, it's a dependency. So a lot of people are going to need you to work on this story. So you're going to start shuffling all of this in Miro. And because eventually you're going to go back to Jira for your day-to-day processes, you're going to have to reconcile your checkbook per se. You're going to have to go back in Jira and make sure what you plan in PI planning matches Jira. And who wants to do that? Trust me, I've done it and it takes a while and there's a lot of work. So Miro recently came up with a really cool feature. It's called the planner or program board. And you can find it just doing a search for planner. And what you see here, this only works with Jira cards. Again, it's the same method. You bring in this application and it shows you your backlog. And then for each column that you see here, you have your sprints. You can change the capacity manually. You change the capacity as you calculated early right here. And then what you start doing is you start moving the cards. Hey, I want to put this into sprint 1. You can see that the number starts to change. Okay, I can add more work here. Then things start moving around, etc. You know, it's self-explanatory. You can see once you hit a certain load, you get a warning. Oh, this is too much. So you got to move this to another sprint. But the beauty of this is this: as you move things from one sprint to another, as you change things around, all the thinking is happening in a Jira in the background. So you don't have to do it after the fact. So that really, when you're done with PI planning, when you're done, you're done. So this is a great feature. So now we really are done as far as Team A is concerned. We put in all our stickies in our board. We know when our iterations are going to be completed. Sorry, when our features are going to be completed. And now we move our features in the big board, in the program board, so that we can then review what we're going to do, what other teams are going to do, that we can have discussions about dependencies, risks, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where the conversation really happens. The one thing that I don't have time to show you, but Miro just came up with a new dependencies app that actually works with these Jira cards, that you can actually track dependencies in Miro for the different stories. So it's something that, as a homework, go check it out. It's a really cool feature. So this is the before and after. So back in the day, before Miro, this is what our board used to look like. You have all the stickies, you have this red thread connecting any dependencies, and funny, not funny, sometimes you're in this big room and somebody would open the door to the room and you get this strong breeze and 10 of these stickies would fall to the ground and people will panic because nobody knows where the stickies were before. So those problems are now long gone, because now with Miro, you have a safe digital board that you can still use to collaborate. You can still do it to meet in person, but it's all done safely in the board. So that's the PI planning event. Now, there's one thing that we haven't covered, and it is the confidence vote. If you've ever been a part of the PI planning event, this is a traditional ceremony that occurs at the end of all the planning, at the end of all the program board review, after you've done your risk roaming, which I didn't get to cover. But this is when you do your confidence vote. Basically, everyone in the group gets to vote, how confident do I feel in this plan? And everybody gets a vote, whether it's 1 not confident at all to 5. And the process, Miro gives you a really nice tool for this as well, that I'm about to show you. Is called voting. And it works very much like estimation. You click on this tool here, voting, you select the area of the board. You can put in stickies, you can put in shapes. There's a variety of options as you see here. Typically, you're gonna wanna have 1 vote per person, and then you can give it a time so that when everybody joins, they have a limited time to cast their vote, join their session, and then Miro will then putting the votes magically inside each of these tickets. So then you have an opportunity to discuss if someone doesn't feel confident about the plan, why is that? What are the setbacks? What are the concerns that they may have? And then the meeting is concluded. So that is confidence voting. And now, congratulations. I just scaled down a 3-day event into 20 or so minutes. You've just completed a PI planning event like a pro. If you use these tools that I just showed you, it's going to save you significant time. And now that the PI planning event is over, you want to have a retro. And I'm not going to spend too much time here. I saw on the agenda today, there's a ton of good sessions on retros today. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. But if you've ever done retros in Miro, you know that there's a lot of tools, a lot of templates available for you. If you go on there, search for retrospective, use type retros, you have over 33 results on a variety of things, because you want to get together with your team after the fact and discuss, hey, what went well? What didn't we do well? What should we continue doing forward in the future? What should we stop doing? And it's a way to get better and better each time. That's one thing with PI planning events is everyone that you have, you're going to struggle. There's going to be some difficulties, but you want to get better and better and better each time. And the retros help you do that. And that's it. Those are my 7 ways to supercharge your PI planning events using Miro. I hope you find this session useful. I'll end with just encourage you, everyone on the call, if you're not participating in these Miro webinars, please do so. They really put out a lot of good content. If you've been participating in any of the sessions today, there's been a lot of new content, new features released that I'm looking forward to going and trying out so that I can make my work easier, so I can be more impactful with my team. So go ahead, I recommend that you participate in these webinars or listen to previous recordings of these webinars. And with that, my time is coming almost to an end. So I want to thank you for participating in my session. And now I want to open up for comments, questions that you may have. I'll be happy to help. Okay, so there's a question here. Sounds like many of these features are getting supported via Azure DevOps integration finally. Any word if Miro will support on-premises Azure DevOps server integration? That is a great question that I don't have an answer to, but I did see that Azure DevOps will be starting in November. It's going to be supported as well. Sorry, I can't help you there. Is there a template specifically for Jira integration? Well, what's available is the application. So let me stop presenting here. If you go to the app, these are your Jira cards. You obviously have to have rights to the project. It's not like everybody can join, but this is how you do the integration. You can do a basic or advanced search. You click on the different stories that you want to bring, and this is how you would want to bring it to the board. Do you have a recommendation to plan at initial level, 1 level about teams? I'm not sure I understand the question, but we have to wrap it up in a minute. Let me close with just one recommendation. If you're doing SAFe and PI planning events, there's a lot of what I just showed you that if you want to make your PI planning events go off better, you can do even before the event starts. Creating your stories, bringing the stories to the board, finding out when your team is going to be on vacation, etc. Like a lot of times teams do this during the PI planning events. I'd say do it before. Do it as part of your pre-PI planning event, so that when you're meeting with everyone and it's at 5 in the morning, you're ready to go and you're not doing things that you could have done much earlier. Okay, are there any more questions? I think the call will stop at 2:25. But if there's questions that you have about what we covered, please, you have my email here. Reach out or let's connect on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to help in any way that I can, and also hear feedback about this session. I was super excited to present this content to you guys, and I hope you found it useful.